I find that a lot of customer success softwares today are focused on the CSM role, which really is kind of typically at most organizations limited to post-implementation ongoing success. It's critical that the CS team knows what went on during the sales cycle, come implementation and kind of ongoing success standpoint. Because if you don't know what those conversations were like and why they bought in the first place, it's hard to deliver upon that.
If you personally ask me, I do think it's possible because the way marketing technology has changed over the years, you have amazing tools for point solutions within marketing space, and they sort of connect very nicely with each other. And I
Yep.
think over a few years, we will have similar scenarios in CS space as well.
I actually view support as part of the customer success journey. So I don't view customer success as just the customer success managers. I view the whole post-sale experience as customer success.
Welcome back to Scale Tales, the customer success podcast, where in each episode we host a CS expert and discuss topics that are core to any customer success strategy. And today I am really excited to welcome Wyeth Goodenough. I saw him at a panel in San Francisco Customer Success Meetup in September, and I was blown away by his valuable insights. And I told myself, I need to get Wyeth on the podcast. So it's great to have you on the podcast today, Wyatt. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Well, thank you for the kind words and thanks for having me. I'm excited to kind of walk through all the exciting topics we have today.
Wonderful, Wyatt. So today, Wyatt is going to talk about his dream customer success platform, what capabilities it must have, how it should work, and what problems it must solve. But before we get into that, let me give you a quick introduction of Wyeth. He's a seasoned professional with 25 years of experience. He's worked in Accenture as a VPCS at Salesforce and a chief customer officer at Ironclad. But his most exciting role, as I have heard, has been being dad for three awesome daughters. So, Wyeth, why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction and talk about your amazing journey in customer success, which
Yeah.
spans more than 2 decades, actually?
Well, yeah. So I mean, customer success wasn't really a thing until about, 10, 15 years ago. And I started my career working for Accenture doing software implementations for focused primarily on Siebel Systems, which was the CRM that ultimately kind of led into what Salesforce became. Amazing experience implementing, kind of enterprise software for some of the largest companies in the world. It was a great experience. I did that for 7 years, then went to business school and got my MBA. Focused on marketing actually, and went to go work for Diageo, who's the largest liquor company in the world, large global company. And marketing is interesting because marketing is all about really understanding your customer and understanding the motivation states the customer's in and how to kind of target and position your target, in terms of reaching the right buyer and then position your product in a way that resonates with them, delivering value upon what they're trying to achieve. And that was really good experience for going into customer success because customer success is about helping customers realize that value. So that was a great experience. I did that for a few years, then went to go back into technology, working for Salesforce, worked as vice president of customer success, leading their largest region in the West, which was just an incredible experience. I loved that. I mean, the growth Salesforce went to, the leadership they had there was absolutely the best under Maria Martinez and John DeRocher, Christina Kosmowski, a bunch of great leaders there. And then decided to kind of test myself in the startup world and went to go join a Series B company named Ironclad as the chief customer officer. And it's just been an amazing ride there, grown tremendously and had a lot of success as a company. And it's been a great journey. I've enjoyed it a lot.
And coming from a background of marketing, I think a lot of what marketing principles are quite similar in customer success in terms of understanding your customer and being able to do the right communications thereafter, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure that experience and that knowledge is kind of becomes a part of what customer success is, in a way, being able to interpret those signals better.
I'd almost kind of equate it to like McKinsey as a consultant designing like what the company needs to do and then having the team that goes and executes it. It's almost like the customer success team is a team that needs to execute upon what marketing is doing. They're identifying the target customer, they're positioning the product in a way that delivers value, so they'll want to buy and then hopefully buy more. And then it's the CS's team to go and make sure that's realized by the customer. So I totally agree with you. I think it's an interesting kind of overlap that I'm not sure many people think about, but it's really there.
So let me get to the topic that I really want to talk about. So, because you have, and especially because you have had such deep experience in leading CS teams at large scale, of course, and also as a startup. So you have that entire gamut of experience, right? And every day there's so much discussion about customer success tools and things like that. And I won't go into self promotion because I don't think any of the tools in the market have actually reached what people really need. So,
Yeah.
what I want to ask you is forget about limitations, what tools are there, what is available, or what can be done. Let's forget about that. It's the technology's problem to solve what you need. Tell me, if you had everything, what would be your dream customer success platform? It's like dreaming of an ideal boyfriend, right? Or a girlfriend. So, what would be your dream customer success platform if there were no limitations? Let's say that.
Oh man. Okay. So this is massive because I think the customer success journey starts really early. It starts in, even in the marketing stage of like prospecting, because you're having to bring in customers that are a good fit, and then they're buying for a reason, and you need to deliver upon that reason. There's a business reason why they're buying your software. So I find that a lot of customer success softwares today are focused on the CSM role, which really is kind of typically at most organizations limited to post-implementation ongoing
Yes.
success.
Yes.
But things start way earlier than that. And so we have, at most companies have tons of tools trying to, understand what went on during the sales cycle to make sure you can deliver on that. The implementation, depending on how heavy a lift your product is to get live, is critical. I mean, frankly, that's probably the most important stage of the post-sale process, is getting a customer live and healthy out of the gate. And I find the CS tools today don't really go much into implementation, really post-implementation ongoing success. So having insights into that stage of like, starting one, capturing why did the customer buy and some value metrics tied to it. Then number two, you're now in the kickoff. All right. So why they buy and what the, kind of insights or what the metrics are they want to track. How do you ensure that you're running an onboarding process or implementation process where you're tracking their ongoing, kind of their journey on that happy path and delivering on the success, and able to kind of notify the, the post-sale team when you're getting off the happy path, and then have playbooks to get them back on the happy path. And then same thing once they're live, right? Once they're live, now you got to be able to track that journey and make sure they're tracking properly. And that's a really big piece of it as well. And then you kind of, I wouldn't say end, but because hopefully you're having customers for life, which actually was the original name of Salesforce's customer success group, was CFL Customer Life. Hopefully you have a customer for life. And if you have a customer for life, you want them to renew and then hopefully expand, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's kind of every step of that journey. I would want a CS tool to kind of help you have a single source of truth for all of that. And right now, I feel like the tooling is kind of everywhere. And I don't know if you'll ever bring it all together, but at least an integrated view into every step of the journey. And then you can take each piece of that and really go deep in terms of what it would be, which I'd be happy to chat about.
I'm more than happy to know a little more. But at least, even though we may or may not be able to reach there, there should be a North Star, right? And that's what I'm looking for today. That's the North Star.
Yeah.
Where if that happens, it would really benefit, whichever tool does it, but it would really benefit customer success community in general. So let's talk about the next part of it. There are multiple responsibilities of various departments that customer success handles and collaborates with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in the light of, let's say, we talk about those collaborations, and then we talk about what all would you want in terms of other departments to have access and to be able to understand that information.
Yeah. Great call out. I mean, I think the two that really come to mind are sales and product. And starting with sales, I already mentioned that it's critical that the CS team knows what went on during the sales cycle, implementation and kind of ongoing success standpoint. Because if you don't know what those conversations were like and why they bought in the first place, it's hard to deliver upon that. And it's also a
Absolutely.
little awkward when you get into the kickoff call and you're
Mm.
like, why did you buy this product? So that collaboration of us, in the post-sale world, ingesting information about the sales cycle is really important. But then, on the other side, the sales team, depending on how you're organized, a lot of companies have the post-sale teams doing expansion. Most companies have the sales team still involved in some capacity, and they may be a segment
Correct.
level. But that back and forth is really important. So collaboration on the ongoing health of the customer, where the opportunities lie, what's the sentiment of the customer, everything. I think that's a really important relationship between sales and
Mm.
CS. And
I
and
think
often it can be a little bit heated because it's sometimes,
yes, yes, it's always heated.
yeah, it can be. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've done a nice job at the companies I've been out of not making it heated, but it does get heated for sure.
And both
Um,
of them, of course, are trying the same thing, but there are things at stake, right? And there are
yeah.
two very important part of sales CS collaboration. One is once you've done the sales, when it gets handed over to CS, and the second part is when CS is working on a day-to-day basis, and when sales needs to step in if expansion is on sales table, like they have to do the conversations, and or sometimes relationships are also on the sales table, like at the senior most levels. So you're right, these collaborations become really, really important between sales and CS. And you're right, it does get heated.
And
In
one of the main reasons it gets heated, I think what you got to look at is how is compensation, because
yes,
when
yes,
compensation isn't aligned to the motivations of what you want to have
correct.
execute at the customer, that's where things get off. And like what I commonly see is, or what I see frequently is, sales teams, post-sale sales teams are only compensated on bookings, not on a net number. And when it's only bookings, they can go into a customer and just do everything they can to raise pricing, sell them new stuff, whatever. And if they blow up some relationships along the way, it doesn't really matter because they're not taking a hit if there's a churn. And most salespeople won't do that, but that does happen, and so I think it's important to really think through your comp model, both for your CS teams and your sales team, to make sure the compensation aligns with what you want the business outcome to
Yeah.
be with the
It's
that's a
compensation and structuring the compensation right, which ensures business motivation is aligned, is in itself a huge topic to talk about. And I think sales, it's still a lot has been done, but CS is still getting there in terms of,
yeah.
people trying to figure out post-sales structure of what needs to be. But I don't want to get into that. But do you think that should also be part of the CS platform?
I mean, that's where it gets hard, is like, if the dream CEO, there ideally there'd be one platform for the whole company to run on and
But
everyone's looking
that's
at the
not
same data.
possible. Yeah,
That's
that's
not
very
possible.
difficult.
So
No.
you put everything
But
together and you run some.
collaboration with tools like tools that sort of manage this
Exactly.
would be at least, one step there. Right.
And I do tend to believe that companies focus on a very specific problem tend to
Mhm.
build better products. And
Yes,
so take
absolutely.
a product like a gong, for example, like
Mhm.
that's a really cool product. And if Salesforce, for example, tried to build a gong, I don't know, could they build it as well? Probably not, because they don't have a team dedicated on a singular focus. And so I do think I tend to think going, well, it's always a tough one, but going kind of best of breed versus the single system, I think you always got to think about that. And so as we think about the perfect system, if you built the holistic system that did everything, it'd probably do everything mediocrely. So you got to
Yes.
kind of piece together some
So when
stuff.
I'm thinking of a dream system, I'm thinking of expertise in different areas and sort
Yeah,
of stitched together so it works team seamlessly. That's my
yeah,
dream idea of it. And I like, if you personally ask me, I do think it's possible because the way marketing technology has changed over the years, you have amazing tools for point solutions within marketing space, and they sort of connect very nicely with each other. And I
yep.
think over a few years, we will have similar scenarios in CS space as well, where everything gets stitched together and gives a seamless solution. And I hope, this North Star is achieved. So going into other departments, what
Yes.
about support?
Support. So it's interesting you say that, and we didn't talk about product, which I want to come back to in a second,
Yes.
but let's support now. So I actually view support as part of the customer success journey. So I don't view customer success as just the customer success managers. I view the whole post-sale experience as customer success, because to me, once you're a customer, you're starting to engage with the support team, and that's all about the customer success journey. So at Ironclad, for example, the way that we're structured is is the post-sale team called the customer success team has professional services. If you think of the customer journey, right? Uh, Professional services. We've got customer success management. So once they're live, ensuring they're successful. We've got customer training and customer enablement. So figuring out scalable ways to train the customer. We've got support. So kind of classic break fix. And there's a lot you can do there that's beyond just break fix. And then we've got part of the customer enablement is we have an academy that's kind of tied into that. We've got the renewals team. So at the end of the kind of their journey, making sure the customer has the right entitlements they need to be successful in that commercial conversation. And then we've got partnerships, SI partnerships as well. So system integrator partnerships. So it's really, kind of the single leader of customer success at Ironclad has that whole post-sale journey, which I really love. Because it gives me the ability to kind of like see the whole journey, see when the customer gets off and at which point, and then have teams work together to get them back on, and also do things in scalable ways and really have insight. Like having that renewal conversation at the end of the journey is really insightful for me as a leader to look at all that data of why are customers staying, why are they leaving, and then how do we fix all the upstream processes to make sure that we provide the best chance of the customer receiving value and ultimately renewing and expanding. So that's kind of structured. Then getting back to your question of support, I see support as a customer success team.
Yes, I got it.
And there's great tooling for support,
Of
obviously,
course.
but what they do is like the more we can have the customer not engage with the support rep, the better. It's more efficient. So we're using academy content, we're using community engagement, we're using different CS playbook motions to ensure the customer doesn't log tickets or try to get them to log tickets, and even in-app guides and things like that, because we're trying to be as efficient as possible.
Of course.
And, trying to kind of create a holistic experience that includes support.
So basically, a platform should also have some, of course, the information of the support, but along with that, training, enablement, and what the customer has been through before coming to that place. Like
Yeah, I mean,
all the
talking
different,
it's like a support platform plus a learning platform plus a
pull all that information at least in some way so that it shows you the entire life cycle or the journey of the I know I'm getting a little carried away, but that's the idea, right? If you open, if as a CSM, if you want to know what's going on with the customer, you need to know what all they have been doing, and what knowledge bases they have read, or what academy articles are they reading, of course a little bit of how active they are in community. So you want to know who is, like, engagement metrics coming from there, how much.
absolutely. The
Oh,
only piece that we don't have at Ironclad under kind of the CS umbrella, which I think normally would live there, would be our community. And community is really powerful when you think about it. If
of
you get,
course, of
that's kind of
course.
the gold standard of like, or not the gold standard, but that's the dream kind of platform and way for customers to engage, because they're solving their own problems, right?
Yeah.
They're coming there and they're going and saying, hey, have you ever done this on the platform or done this to the platform or having this challenge with the platform? And they're solving it together and they feel really invested. And they know, frankly, more than we do because they're living it every day. They're the administrators of the platform, and so of their own platform. And so to me, that's a really important piece of the journey that currently today organizationally we don't have under kind of the customer success leader. We work very closely with them, and there's a lot of reasons why we don't have it there, but that's to your point, that's a really kind of powerful
Yes.
set of data and way customers engage together.
All right. So now the topic that you wanted to talk about, the product thing, which is obviously very important.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, the value of insights that comes with customer success is like gold for product team. So how do we make sure that collaboration works? And how does it work in, Ironclad, or maybe what your ideas in terms of how that works smoothly? And of course,
Yeah.
eventually we think about what needs to be in a product, in our dream place.
So this is a really interesting one. And I think this is one where a lot of companies don't do it very well. And we didn't do it well at the beginning, and now we're doing it really well at Ironclad, I would say. But that's just being tied at the hip with product, especially as you're kind of a rapidly growing, accelerating company like Ironclad is. I mean, Ironclad's just doing tremendously well, and we're, growing across all segments, and we're having to really, the product team's having to stay really in tune with the customer needs. And we have so much product feedback coming in, and most of that product feedback is coming in through the customer success team. And when I say customer success team, the professional services team, the support team, the customer success managers, the team doing training, everyone, SI partners are all giving us feedback.
Conversations in the community, all of these things, right?
Yeah. And this is a really interesting one too, because it also affects, not only affects like getting all that information to the product team so they can build the product roadmap to ultimately make our customers more successful and get more value from the platform. It also affects morale of the post-sale team. Because what we did in the early days at Ironclad is we just would put it into Slack, which put it in some tracking tool. And then it was kind of a black box for the customer success team. They didn't know how things were being prioritized, and they'd go like a long time with hearing the same thing from a customer and then not seeing it get put into the product or onto the product roadmap. And it was frustrating, right? And it was actually, when I do the health check of my team, we call pulse of the team, once a quarter, they were coming back saying, we don't feel like the product roadmap is making sense based on the customer needs. So work closely, very close relationship with the product leadership and engineering leadership. And that's very important. You got to make sure that the executives are aligned. And we said, how do we solve this? And we came up with a voice of the customer program. And that voice of the customer program is effectively a program that's led out of our customer success team. And we take all of that feedback from customers. It's all tracked in a system. We track it all, and we do top 10 lists across all we've broken it up into 4 areas, and each of those areas have a top 10 list of the top 10 features that we feel are most important to be prioritized to make our customers successful. And then we rank them, and then we meet monthly and talk to the product team. And they today have built, I think almost 80, the last piece of data I saw was almost 80% of the features that we've asked for coming out of the CS team. And It really is what they want. It's helping them get the intelligence across all these people, hundreds of people who are meeting with customers every day. And then it's also helping morale of the CS team, because they're now saying, I'm actually seeing, I'm seeing what I'm hearing, I'm logging it, it's getting prioritized, and then it's getting actually built. And so it's a really interesting relationship and process we have that actually has worked very well.
That's a brilliant idea, actually, because when early days, since been doing startups, so, and I saw this happen, because in early days as a founder and like a small team, you're constantly in conversation. As a founder, you are yourself involved in the CS process and making customers successful. You're also involved in the product, so this communication is there by default without putting in effort. But as the team grows, it sort of becomes further away, and without a proper process to sort of maintain that conversation thread, which you've done with voice of customer program, making sure that the product roadmap is aligned with what CS puts in, and that priority comes from there, you have solved that problem, right? Which actually is not there early days, and you don't notice it. But as you start growing, that it's kind of creates a distance. It's a long distance relationship. It needs some effort to get that sorted. So what this means, Wyeth, is that our dream system should have a way to capture voice of customer through the CS team members, right? Which should have some sort of access to the product team as well, sort of, conversation to wherever they are logging or tracking their requirements.
Totally agree. I think that's a really important piece of it.
How
and then not to other teams. However, one thing that's really interesting is when you think about who's engaging with one thing that can be confusing from customers, and I see it all the time as a prospective buyer of software. And also, I don't think we've quite nailed it at any company I've ever been at, but who's touching the customer and how are those communications aligned? One thing that commonly happens is, like, within marketing, you have a customer marketing team, and their job is to inform the customer on, exciting features or, capabilities or events or whatever. And they're really helping to drive that experience. Sales commonly has programs they're running, which are reaching out to the customer, whether it's, they're doing a whole multitude of things, inviting to events that are sales sponsored. And then you've got the CS team doing similar kind of journeys of health. And a lot of times those are all different tools. So like marketing may use Marketo for email communications. You may have the sales team leveraging, whatever sales loft, and then you have the CS team using a Gainsight or Catalyst or something like that. And now you have a whole different look and feel. You've got different, ways of writing the copy. You've got little different messaging, and it can feel really confusing. So getting back to the dream system, like figuring out how to align with all the other systems and tooling and ensuring that all communications are captured. So at least maybe you say, hey, we're going to let everyone use a slightly different tool, but at least everything's fed in there so you can see a holistic view of what the customer experience is, because it can get pretty confusing and
Yes.
frustrating.
And you don't end up bombarding the customer with conversations from like different teams at the same time. It's sort of aligned properly, spaced out, and at least in a similar sort of, language, if I may say so, in terms of
Yeah,
similar sort of language and similar conversations.
all that stuff. Totally. Absolutely.
That's very interesting actually. Nobody thinks of, like, I haven't heard anyone say that, but that's a very, very important point. Because yes, everybody has to reach out to existing customers. That's interesting. How about finance, Wyatt?
Yeah. So finance, that's a really good question. So we again have a very tight relationship with finance, and finance helps us a lot across multiple areas, from kind of headcount planning and budgeting and everything to probably the biggest one, most important, is nailing the renewals forecast. So it's common that everyone's always like thinking about bookings all the time in the software world. Okay. So everyone's like bookings. Oh, the sales team hit $20 million this quarter, $50 million. It's like bookings. But on the back end, you've got this renewals number, the gross renewal number, which is the dollars being renewed of the total base. And that's a really important number. And especially as your kind of base of revenue increases,
It becomes 80-90% of it. Yeah.
exactly, it can completely dwarf the bookings number. And so if you have a 1 or 2 point miss in your gross renewal rate, and then you have depending on what the ratio is of bookings to the base of revenue, you could have a 10-point beat of bookings and a 2-point renewal miss and miss your number because
Absolutely.
and so that relationship is really important, because ultimately finance is going to be held to the numbers and having a pulse on the numbers. And what matters most in finance is closest to the pin, like getting the number right. And so, and depending on where the renewals team lies, which you can debate where it should lie, and I think there's a lot of reasons to put it at different stages in different places, but that relationship is really important because you got to get that renewals forecast right.
So now when you mentioned forecast, right, which is very important. So from forecast, we move into the area which becomes now a picture of how do you do forecast? And then the conversations of health scoring comes in the picture, right?
Yeah.
Health scoring is a lot more. And, a lot of things where it sort of creates prioritization of CSM. But I think forecasting is a very important need to have an understanding based on certain parameters. So how do you look at health scoring, and what is your point of view around that?
Ooh, I love this topic. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and on a journey of like trying to create a bunch of different health scores. So I look at it, I kind of view it as there's 4 key components of a health score. And if you blend them all together, you just get a muddied score that doesn't really tell you anything. So these are 4 separate things. I haven't figured out, like, could you put an overall health score with this, but I'll kind of lay out the 4 that I view as really critical in kind of the software world. So number 1 is just product usage, right? And you've got to make sure the customer is using the product. If the customer is not using the product, you've got a problem. So having some sort of product usage health score that ultimately ties to value is really good. So like, we figured out ways. We have a thing called an Ironclad Maturity Score, IMS, at Ironclad, and that is a score that is designed to look at all the different features and capabilities that could be used and different use cases even, and weight them all in a way that should give a customer a score of how they're using the product in a valuable way to them. It's not just like, is the product being used? It's weighted in a way that's helping to give insight into the value they're getting from the platform. That's number 1. So a product usage score is really important. Number 2 is entitlement usage. Okay, so we're a seat-based model, and your pricing and packaging models will affect how you think about this. If you're a consumption model, this is a little, but it's still really important. If you're a seat-based model, which we primarily are at Ironclad, and Salesforce primarily is, let's say a customer is using the heck out of the product, right? Let's say they bought 1,000 seats and they're using the heck out of the product. You go look at their product usage score and it's super high. They may only be using, though, 600 of the 1,000 seats that they purchased. And all they need, right? They don't need more because, it turns out once they rolled it out, they had layoffs or whatever. So there's significant risk there in terms of having a partial churn, right? You're going to have
Correct.
probably renewal time.
Downsizing.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're only using 400. So there's an entitlement usage score that I think is really important. That'd
Very
be like,
important.
it could be as simple as what percent of the entitlements are they buying. It's harder to get to in reality than you think, because oftentimes customers are on different pricing and packaging. You have different products and SKUs and all sorts of things going on there. But so number one, a product usage score. Number two, an entitlement usage score is the second one. Number three is a sentiment score. So like we have all sorts of sentiment, and not every company does, around sentiment of how does the customer view you. And kind of the classic example would be a net promoter score. So we use net promoter score. We think it's really insightful. It's a little bit,
But it gives you an indicator,
yeah, an
gives you
indicator.
Mhm.
It's worth doing, but you can't like
Mhm.
base everything on an NPS
Of
score, because
course.
you've got to figure out, there's a lot of things you got to do about it. That's a whole separate conversation I'm happy to have at some point. But we have a net promoter scores. We've got CSAT during support engagements. We've got implementation score, CSAT scoring. We've got a bunch of other like sentiment of the customer towards us. We've got gong meetings, where we're recording the calls and we get sentiment from that. So there's like a sentiment score that I think is really important. And even the CSM, when you have like a high touch CSM or any sort of CSM engagement or AE engagement with the customer, there's like, you got something out of that, some sentiment from the customer. So how does all of that fit into that
Build
sentiment?
together.
And so that's the third one is just a sentiment score. So if you're tracking really low with this customer because their NPS is, they're a 2 and there's CSAT, all these scores, like you're going to have a low score. Whereas and it's interesting because we've, I've seen customers who just love you as a customer, but they don't really use the product. Well, that's really,
Yes, that happens.
the reverse happens where they're using the heck out of the product, but
But they
they
don't like you.
super frustrated with you because whatever reason, you could have just had a system disruption, an outage or something like that, and they're frustrated. So understand sentiment score. That's number three. And then number four is an engagement score. So how are they engaging with you? Are they like showing up? Are they in your community? Are they coming to your events? Are they logging support tickets? Like how are they engaging with you as a company? And I think that's also a really interesting one because a lot of people become very invested. And Salesforce is actually the poster child of this. Like their admin community is so rich in this whole MVP program. If you're in charge of Salesforce at a customer, one of their customers, and you're showing up at Dreamforce every year and you're, logging stuff in their community and you're an MVP and all these things, you're probably a pretty happy, customer. Yeah. So that's it's a kind of a fourth one. So those are kind of the four that I think about. And we've done a really good job at Ironclad of building out, I think, some and kind of not other ones. But there's a whole vision of where we want to get with some of the stuff. And a lot of it's dependent on, we're very close to building out a whole CS data mart, which is really cool, which is going to have every product feature is kind of tagged in the system, and we will be able to track how the product is being used by every single customer, so we can make sure that they use the product to its richest. It'll be really to its fullest. So it'll be a kind of a helpful way for our teams to engage with customers with that data.
And hopefully that can also help finance team plan some of their forecasting.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps a lot.
I can see your energy here, Wyeth. Like, you got so excited talking about health scoring, and I can understand the amount of effort it would have been taken to be able to reach and to be able to pull all of these 10,000 data points together, making sure product is not just number of customers logging in, but much deeper in terms of value that is being created, and add that to the product KPIs. That's very, very important. Same with all the other things. I mean, it's not one thing, but multiple things bringing it together. And you're right. These are four independent things. Of course, you might have one score, but you still have to constantly look at all the four as independent parameters, and then, of course, plan accordingly. I am sorry, we are out of time. It's almost 30 minutes. I think we could probably talk about this for hours. But is there anything you want to add, seriously, to the dream CSP that we have been thinking about?
When are you building it?
I don't know. I don't think any
Oh,
one company can
we were
build it.
talking about.
I don't think
No.
any one company can build it, but I think there would be multiple companies who would be focused on different areas. And
Yep.
the best company would be that is able to put all of this together and integrate with those, amazing point solutions. No
Yep.
company can build all of this and be the best at it. I don't think that's possible. But I do believe that there will be companies who would create amazing point solutions. I do strongly believe that the CSP space in next few years will grow in terms of tools and technology. It will grow exactly like MarTech did. There will be amazing point solutions solving problems. And hopefully, the dream CSP will come together by integrating all of these amazing solutions together, bringing it in one sort of one story or one platform.
Yeah, totally agree. And the generative AI is really powerful. And I think it'll be really
Yes.
powerful in the CS world. We have all these areas of data, be able to bring it all together into a single place. And I think so. I think the CS tooling over the next 36 months looks tremendously different than it looks today. And I'm super excited about it. I've been looking at a lot of young companies like yourself.
Yes.
And I think there's just some fascinating work being done.
Yes,
Digital.
I am excited about the space, and every day a new company comes. I actually feel more excited because the more companies come into this space, the better this entire space will become in terms of awareness, in terms of requirements, in terms of amazing point solutions. And with the space that technology is moving with AI, bringing new amazing use cases and being able to solve things which were slightly harder before, which have become so much amazingly easier now. So I hope we will be able to do some awesome things, and hopefully we will talk in a few years again, Wyatt, and see where our North Star has reached.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the
My
conversation.
pleasure, Wyatt. It was really amazing to have a chat with you and hear all these deep expertise and insights and the health scoring and all the work that you've done. I personally have learned so much, and I'm sure our listeners will find this episode valuable as well. Thanks, Wyatt. And I would really like our listeners to be able to connect with you. So we will share your LinkedIn link, of course, in the podcast. Thank you, all the listeners, for joining us in today's podcast. And let's hope our North Star comes true soon in the future. And if you like the podcast, please feel free to follow and subscribe to us. We are available on all major podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And see you in the next episode soon.